This is a self-inflicted problem by the administration, and they put out a joint unsigned memo from the FBI and the DOJ on a holiday weekend, thinking that that would suffice. I think it's a healthy thing for Americans to have skepticism of their government. And when we're being told, hey, this giant, let's call it a conspiracy that a lot of people, and I don't use that term pejoratively, but that a lot of people have been thinking about with good intentions in most cases, which is, hey, can we get some justice for the children who were trafficked, who were horrifically exploited, and then say, okay, there's nothing more to see here. I just don't think that that will suffice. And now they're saying we want to put out some accurate documents. Okay, that's a move in the right direction. But just think about human nature. Let's go back to the JFK assassination real quick. We're now told that they've put out, I think, 97% of the files about JFK, right? What is the obvious question that anyone would have when I say that? What's in the other 3%?
All right, guys, it is Thursday, as you know. That means we're on a glide path to the weekend. And my new thing these days is to look at the weather report for Bedminster. I feel bad for countries because if it rains and the president goes out and golfing, guess what, suckers? You're going to have tariffs coming your way because that's what he's going to do, sit around and truth up tariffs for you. Anyway, by the way, today is the 499th episode of the Sean Spicer Show. Tomorrow, we've got cake. We're going to celebrate the 500th episode. But thank you for everything. A great panel, a lot to get into today on all the issues that are facing Congress, Maha movement, etc. A big show tomorrow. Mark Mitchell of the Rasmussen Report is going to be here to break down the latest in polling. So if you are a political geek, of which I am, you're going to want to be here tomorrow to hear the latest, what issues are driving, how Republicans faring, what is the White House and Donald Trump's approval, and why? So anyway, and by the way, next week, I bet you didn't see this coming. Yeah, we crossed the 500 threshold, so guess who we're having on Monday? Sean O'Brien, the head of the Teamsters. Yeah, holy smokes. That's right. We're going to break down what the Teamsters think of all of these things Donald Trump is doing for the American workers. You didn't see that one on your bingo card, did you? Derek Van Orden's going to be here to talk about what we're doing on the national security front. John Solomon will be here, and a big panel coming your way on Thursday as well. Before I get to the panel, though, you know what? The weekend's coming. What does that mean for me? It means a little time on the grill. That's what I do. I'm a griller. Yeah, that's it. I'm a griller. And guess what? I love to also go out on other people's expense accounts to nice steakhouses. So I grill and I go out on other people's dime. I know a good steak when I see one. And my guys, I'm going to tell you this right now, Riverbend Ranch, it is epic. These are hands down, no exaggeration, the best steaks I've ever had in my life. And they've spent 35 years, that's almost as old as I am. Maybe a little, figuring out the best tenderness, the best marble to make these the best steaks. They are from ranches in Wyoming and Montana. And the thing is, they raise them to get the best marbling and tender, but without any of that hormones or anti-growth or any of that crap that we see in so much of the food. These are the best that you've ever seen in your life. They're aged a full 21 days, a savory tenderness take. I'm telling you, everyone that had them, I had the strip, the ribeye, and the petite filet. Also, the hot dogs. I'm a hot dog guy. I know some of you might be like, I don't like hot dogs. My kids love hot dogs. Everybody was like, holy smokes. I tried the beef jerky and the beef sticks. I'm not kidding, guys. When I say best I've ever had, and you cannot buy this in the grocery store, it's ranch to you. Ranch to you. You can't get a better steak. I'm telling you. Go to riverbendranch.com. Use promo code Sean for $20 off your first order. By the way, they've got these subscriptions. I think I did the cowboy. That's just my pro tip to you guys right now. Once you taste it, you will be hooked. I'm telling you, riverbendranch.com, promo code Sean. All right, one last thing. A great organization that's out there leading the charge are the folks at the Concerned Women for America. You guys know we're in the middle of a cultural war. And Penny Nance, she's been on the show before. She'll be back soon. Is leading the way at Concerned Women for America for decades now. These guys have been at the forefront of all of these cultural wars. If you're a mom, you know what I'm talking about. You know what your kids face every single day in society, at schools. CWA, the Concerned Women for America, focus on 7 core issues: family, sanctity of life, religious liberty, parental choice, education, fighting sexual exploitation, national sovereignty, and support for Israel. They were fighting getting men out of women's sports before it was cool. Penny Nance and her team over there are so far in front of the cultural issues. You've got to find out what they're doing. I ask you, please support their efforts. For a donation of $20, You not only support the great work that Penny Nance and the folks at Concerned Women for America are doing, but here's the kicker. You get her free new book. It's called A Women's Guide, 7 Rules for Success in Business and Life. So maybe that's something that you like, or that you know somebody would make a great gift for them. A birthday, who cares? You're always looking for a reason to give a gift to somebody. It's a great book, and it supports the great work that Concerned Women for America and Penny Nance are doing over there. Go to concernedwomen.org, concernedwomen.org/Spicer for your copy today. So Concerned Women, it's plural. They take care of everyone. concernedwomen.org/Spicer for your free book. All right. Without further ado, I want to bring in today's all-star panel, our good buddy Dave Avella, the leader of GOPAC and a veteran GOP strategist. Matthew Foldi, who is extraordinaire fashionista and also does some sideline reporting for the Washington Spectator in his day job when he's not leading the way on music, culture, fashion, etc. And then new to the show, our good friend, former White House staff in the first Trump administration and correspondent Gabrielle Cuccia. Gabrielle, thanks for joining us. Welcome to the team. I hope you got the blazer, the sweatsuit that we sent your way. That comes with every new guest. If it didn't, I'd ask Matthew to lead one of the things that he does outside of all that is lead our shipping and packing efforts. So if you haven't gotten it, please
I
see
can let her
him.
this one if she wants.
What? Yeah. I know. Well, no, I thought maybe you were waiting for later. Dave Avella's got 2, though. He scammed us out of a second one. All right. Gabrielle, you're new to the team. I want to ask you, I don't like talking about Jeffrey Epstein. I don't. I mean, and I say this because I get why it's important. Okay, so please don't misunderstand that I get why it's a proxy for transparency. But it pisses me off that we have all of these MAGA wins on the Trump agenda. He passed the big, beautiful bill. We'll get to the rescissions package that just passed. Big Maha wins this week. More and more people are getting rid of dyes, right? And I'm like, I want to scream from the rooftops, look at what he's getting done. And we're talking about a dead pedophile. I get it, okay? So there's a lot of important issues on transparency and what the victim should get. So don't misunderstand that. So where are we in this issue? And if you looked into a crystal ball, where is this going and how soon does it end?
Okay, well, I don't think it ends anytime soon until more information comes out. I'm actually with you. I think a lot of conservatives, whoever is on one side of the aisle or not, when it comes to how badly they want this information to come out, all across the board, conservatives and people who didn't even want to necessarily vote for Trump and then realized their alternative was Kamala Harris and then ended up voting for him, they voted for him because they knew that he would bring really good results. So that, it's everything that you just listed out. 100%. You want to talk about the successes at the border. You want to talk about Maha. You want to talk about the economy. All of that, 110%. I hate that this kind of clouds all of the successes. However, you can't help but want more information or expect more information out of the administration. I mean, there's a couple things going on here. One is you have a lot of Trump loyalists that have podcasts or were commentators or, had a natural organic career in speaking the truth and trying to combat the typical mainstream media in getting good information and highlighting the wins of the Trump administration and the work that he was doing even post the administration throughout his campaign. So you have all those people who became really good friends with people that maybe didn't get tapped for these government positions. So they all are still friends, right? So there is this weird dichotomy happening where the government has never had this overlap as much as it does today, where a lot of these government officials who might have started as influencers, commentators, whatever it may be, still have all these friends that have very large X accounts. And what's happening is that being able to parse out maybe what shouldn't be what they would hope wouldn't be shared or posted, the inner workings, whether there's a battle between Bongino and Bondi and all that type of stuff, you're seeing there's no clear line in the sand between sharing that type of information and that type of social dynamic to the rest of the people, whether it's for good intent or bad intent, to get more followers, to get more attention, or to just, plainly speak the truth that that's exactly what's happening. So there's that one element. The second one being that we heard President Trump, I would say it was a little more out of his personality to what I sensed was a frustration, right? I don't think any of us would necessarily disagree with that. If you guys do, feel free to jump on in. But the thing is that he did say, however he sees all the details as they are behind closed doors, he did say that this was in pattern with, say, the Russia hoax or the Hunter Biden laptop, right? the thing is that the Hunter Biden laptop, Marco Polo did a stack as big as my head of information on the Hunter Biden laptop. And say even the Russia hoax, we have so much information. Even Comey, to a fault, the DOJ really screwed up because, again, they weren't learning the realities of how we info share and get more investigative information, even down to the littlest person, say someone like me, who's just an average citizen, right? So the difference between those two elements is that the administration said that they were absolutely heinous, and we saw the information. So how do you get through it, Sean? Like, what does this look like? The longer that they wait to put out that information that kind of shows this is a hoax or this is being doctored or whatever it may be, the longer people have questions, especially after the fact that we were told exhaustingly that there was no footage. And then we saw the footage, and then there had to be a little bit of backtracking of why there were certain minutes being taken out. Then the conversation of, hey, this video doesn't necessarily match the photo that we were given way back when Epstein did kill himself. So there's all these funky elements going on. But make no mistake, hearing Maxwell's family say, hey, she'd like to testify, sure, testify. You're not going to change my mind. I highly doubt that you're going to change my mind that you're innocent. I highly doubt it. However, let her perjure herself then. I mean, at this point, everyone is under such a microscope that even if the DOJ or Maxwell's team try to BS us all through it, I think at this point in America, we are just so hyper fixated on finding the truth and not taking the hires as Bible for anything that it only emboldens us more to ask questions and to decipher the truth for ourselves as well. So that's how I'm feeling as well. Of course, I want everyone to celebrate the wins of the administration because there's a ton, and it really does. It's unfortunate that it's being clouded, but this is one of those things where it transcends between outside of politics and conservatism and down to the regular American individual. And it is one thing that actually probably could put us, bring us all together. So why not?
Matthew, what do we need to do to put a pin in this?
It's a good question. I want you guys to not think about a purple elephant. So obviously you're now probably thinking about a purple elephant, and that's an old psychology trick. And I think that's kind of what's going on here with Epstein is that, and look, I'm a guy, when I'm not wearing this suit, I have a sweater that says Christmas lights don't hang themselves, and neither did Jeffrey Epstein. So I think whether you want to believe that Epstein did hang himself, which I think there are very valid questions about whether the bones that were broken in his neck would suggest that. I think when I approach this, the question I think about is, why is he dead? Not necessarily how did he die? Did someone else do it? Did he physically hang himself when he was on suicide watch, when they have the bed sheets that tear as soon as you touch them, and with the pill bottles on the thing that would theoretically be knocked over, and with the bone that was broken that was commensurate with being strangled? Whatever, let's set all of that aside. He's dead. Why is that the case? I don't think we know the answer to that. And Sean, I think one of the reasons why we can't necessarily put a pin on it that quickly is because the whole thing here stands in contrast with what Trump is doing otherwise, with what people think about Trump, which is he's taking on the system. Sean, obviously you were in the first admin. I mean, Trump is the most transparent person. I've called his cell phone. He's answered my call. We've done an interview. This is the most transparent administration ever, especially in comparison to the Biden administration, which we'll talk about the cover-ups there. And all of a sudden, we're being told, after being told there's a lot to see here, we're being told there's nothing to see here. And this administration, remember, Tulsi Gabbard and the as the director of national intelligence, is releasing tons of files on JFK, RFK, MLK. These are, the JFK assassination is a conspiracy theory that has not been put to rest. And they want to release the information. RFK Sr. obviously was assassinated, as far as I can tell, by a Palestinian terrorist. And RFK Jr. is saying, put it all out. The trauma doesn't matter. The transparency is worth it for transparency's sake. So now we're going to release some of the documents. And I totally agree that what do the Russia collusion hoax, the Felonious 51, what do these things all have in common? The Steele dossier, they're all completely out there. They're all completely bogus. Anyone with 5 brain cells can see that. So other than the actual horrific videos that, we assume exist of child sex exploitation in the Epstein files, I don't know what harm would exist from releasing en masse a lot of the documents that, by the way, we were told would exist. And I think the other thing is, guys, this is a self-inflicted problem by the administration, and they put out a joint unsigned memo from the FBI and the DOJ on a holiday weekend thinking that that would suffice. I think it's a healthy thing for Americans to have skepticism of their government. And when we're being told, hey, this giant, let's call it a conspiracy that a lot of people, and I don't use that term pejoratively, but that a lot of people have been thinking about with good intentions in most cases, which is, hey, can we get some justice for the children who were trafficked, who were horrifically exploited, and then say, okay, there's nothing more to see here. I just don't think that that will suffice. And now they're saying we want to put out some accurate documents. Okay, that's a move in the right direction. But just think about human nature. Let's go back to the JFK assassination real quick. We're now told that they've put out, I think, 97% of the files about JFK, right? What is the obvious question that anyone would have when I say that?
Where are the three?
What's in the other 3%? So transparency, especially with something like this, that's a deeply painful saga in America, is something that I just think they shouldn't want to run away from. If Trump were in these files, Joe Biden would have released it.
Yes,
I don't think he's in these files. I don't know what he gains by dismissing the importance of putting them out there, especially when he and top people in his administration were saying, hey, we're going to put this out. And my final point on Epstein is I don't think that Democrats are going to like the can of worms they're about to open here for their own party. Morning joke. Just asked Jamie Raskin, I think this morning, so you want the Epstein files out. Why didn't you want these out when Biden was president? And Raskin said, well, we had other things to be focusing on. Guys, who is very much in the Epstein files? Bill Clinton.
Yep. I agree. So, all right, Dave Avella, before you answer, this was an exchange that President Trump had yesterday in the Oval. Take a look at how he answered. I'll just play a quick snippet of this. Take a look.
Will you ask Attorney General Pam Bondi to release more documents to finally put this controversy to bed?
Yeah, whatever's credible, she can release. If a document is credible, if a document's there that is credible, she can release. I think it's good. But it's just a subject. He's dead. He's gone, and. All it is certain Republicans got duped by the Democrats, and they're following a Democrat playbook. And no different than Russia, and all the other hoaxes. They're started by the Democrats, and some Republicans, in this case, I was surprised, but they got duped.
Okay, so Dave Avella, I want you to take into consideration what Gabrielle said and what Matthew said, that, like, to me, the only answer, because, to Matthew's point about the Democrats, they want this out there. I got to believe if Trump, actual pun intended, trumps them and puts it all out there, they're going to be pissed. This is all of these friends of Jeffrey Epstein's, I think, are his. Alan Dershowitz said the other day, no current office holder is on that list. So that rules out Trump, right? So Trump's okay. I got to believe that there's maybe some donor friends, but by and large, it's Democrats on that list. Okay. He says Pam can do what she wants. Okay. Yesterday we had Tom Fitton on the show. He said he's suing them for a FOIA. And his whole point is when you do a FOIA, they have to explain why they're not putting it out. So this would give them cover, right? We can't release this document because it's got inappropriate sexual nature footage on it of a minor. And that gives them cover as to why to Matthew's point here, we get to explain why some documents can't be released, and we do it for you, i.e. the FOIA process. So I see several avenues that they could help get some of the air out of this, release some of the air. Put your Dave Avella strategist hat on for a second, and you get a call and says, you just heard Gabrielle make the case why it is still a relevant issue. Matthew explained the sort of consequences. How do we get out of this? What's the answer, Dave Avella?
This continues to get attention until the Kardashians or the royal family get into another feud. And those who find this topic interesting, but not particularly relevant to their everyday life, move on to the next thing that is of interest to them, but maybe doesn't affect their everyday life. So there's that audience. But now to your point about from a strategic perspective, what happens here? If there are goods, then somebody needs to be prosecuted. That's what gets this to go away. If the Justice Department has real evidence against men and women on that list that committed crimes, they need to prosecute them. And you start getting prosecutions going when real crimes are committed, then you get all of those who are concerned about that issue saying, okay, They are actually going after the folks who did wrong, who did criminal things to those young children. That's what solves this. No matter what documents get put out there, there will be an element of Americans who want more or will question the documents that actually get put out there. What puts this away is people going to jail if they committed crimes.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? I want to move on. I feel like I've said my piece. You guys have covered everything. Is there anything left? Anyone have a point they want to make on this before I move on? Because, yeah, okay. I see the hand of the gentlelady from, I guess, where you're Northern Virginia right now, Gabrielle?
Yeah, DC.
Okay.
But I just want to say, President Trump has never been the person that starts something and doesn't finish it. So when you roll out of phase 1, we imagine a phase 2, right? So at the end of the day, finish what you started. That's my piece. That's all I got.
Okay. I think the one thing we're in general agreement on, they got to figure out something to put a button on this. Because I agree with Matthew. Everyone's going to go, well, what else is out there? I get your point, Dave, but you start prosecuting one person, I go, okay, show me what else you got there. So I think that might help. Let some air out of the tire, but I'm with Matthew on this. This is built up. This is not about Epstein, as I've said before. It's a proxy for transparency in the government, and so they need to show more. But speaking of that, guess who got fired? Somebody who worked on that case, James Comey, the former FBI director. His daughter got fired. She was working in the Southern District of New York. I just look there. It's sort of hush-hush right now about why she got fired. She's not commenting. They're not getting fired. Is there something here, Matthew, that I'm missing? In other words, when you put your spidey sense up, do you go, she got fired because she's the daughter of Jim Comey? Or did she get fired because she probably might have done something or covered up something? Remember, go back a little. Pam Bondi said when she put out that first binder that she found out that the Southern District of New York had all this additional information. They were holding it. So my spidey sense went up yesterday, last night, whatever it was, and says, was she one of the people holding back this information, or is this just that she's Comey, or was she incompetent? But what are you sort of going, something's there, or move on?
I'll give you the tinfoil hat answer and then the non-tinfoil hat answer. The tinfoil hat answer is, who gave Jeffrey Epstein his first real job? Bill Barr's father. And the attorney general who was attorney general when he died. And the connections that this case has to powerful people all across the world is one of the things that makes it so fascinating and so hard to ignore. So you can look at this and say, that's a crazy coincidence. And look, I think a lot of this stuff is a series of crazy coincidences that just looks like it adds up to something a lot more than that. Comey's daughter, and this sort of switches to the non-tinfoil hat answer. She was also involved in the Diddy case that didn't go as well as I think that people thought the case would go. It looked like, I thought, a more open and shut case. They could not seal the deal on some of the more serious charges against Diddy. And then the Occam's razor answer, the non-tinfoil hat answer, is Donald Trump hates James Comey and she's collateral damage in his never-ending war with her father. Remember, James Comey posted 8647, meaning that he was either too dumb to know that means kill the president, or he was being a little bit more nefarious than that. And I don't think Trump forgets the people who post or try to assassinate him, right? That was pretty integral, I think, in his decision to strike Iran last month. And that's probably the most, if Comey's not still on MSNBC posting about 8647ing Trump with shells he just happened to find while on the beach, maybe his daughter's still at the SDNY.
Yeah. I'll be interested in that. All right. Well, the other kind of story that got buried this week before we get to some of the wins, Anthony Bernal, he was Jill Biden's work husband. He was a chief of staff, top aide. He gets brought in, like the doctor, Sean O'Connor, gets brought in and pleads the fifth. Now, I get it. You have the right to, but what is it that you know? You got to ask some pretty bland questions about, did anyone tell you to lie? Did anyone perform functions under the assumed name of the president? Those shouldn't be covered by, again, I'm not a lawyer, so please don't take legal or economic advice from me, investing advice. But I will tell you that it seems odd to me that when you're asked, did anyone break the law performing functions of the president without him knowing, if you don't need to take the fifth because you're being self-incriminated, David Avella. And I'm like, it seemed odd to me that you have another guy taking the fifth on stuff that should be Again, the fifth is if you self-incrimination. What did you do that you have to worry that you did something illegally if there's nothing there?
David, you can't plead the fifth here.
Yeah,
no
you can't
fifth pleading here. There's a thing called the Hippocratic Oath that doctors take, that they're telling the truth about someone's medical condition. But it is very clear that we were not given the full picture of President Biden's health during his time in office. And whether that's because, as doctors say, they practice and they just missed all the telltale signs that something was wrong with the president, or they actually knew it and weren't truthful. I mean, that's kind of where we are with this, is that, look, it is very clear the president was pretty sick when he was serving in the White House. And, now we're just, everything from the auto pen to the decisions he's made. It just, gosh, what a pile of mess the Biden administration was.
Yeah, Gabrielle, I want to play for you. Byron Donalds had a little something to say afterwards. Let me play you a clip of how he reacted to all this.
First things first, that's just crazy. You can't answer a simple question about the former president's ability to discharge his duties, and you worked in the White House as chief of staff to the first lady, and you come in here and you plead the fifth. He can say whatever he wants in his testimony, which, by the way, his attorney read. He wouldn't even read his own statement. His attorney read his statement for him. So you came in there, it said that him pleading the fifth is not an admission of guilt or anything about what was going on in the Biden White House, or was just to give any inkling to the fact that Joe Biden was lacking in capability. The fact that he couldn't make any statement, the fact that the White House doctor couldn't make any statement, and they both pled the fifth, which is their constitutional right to do. And we respect the Constitution like every American does. But the fact that they are now hiding behind the Constitution so that they don't have to tell the truth to the American people about Joe Biden's capabilities and mental faculties while he was president of the United States is not just shocking, it's stunning, and it demonstrates the level of corruption that was going on in that administration.
All right, Gabrielle. So to David's point, okay, the doctor, okay, maybe you could claim doctor-patient confidentiality, and I can't talk about that, which is not what he did, by the way. Okay, so maybe on the best day, you could give the doctor some benefit of the doubt. This was Jill Biden's work husband. He has got the highest rank among staffers in the White House. He's being asked a simple question. Did anyone perform the duties of the president of the United States without his knowledge? When you plead the fifth, you are saying, I don't want to incriminate myself for actions that may have been criminal. He's right. Byron Donalds is. He has a right to plead that, but only if he did something that he would be perjuring himself or implicating himself for. So that, to me, I get it. On the best day, give the doctor a pass. I don't, but I'm just saying, if you want to be generous, do that. But this guy, how does that not get a bigger play?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you just said right there. So when I worked at the White House, I actually had auto pen privileges and worked under the staff secretary. So I know the process very well. And I bring up the auto pen because when we talk about, well, was Joe Biden in good mental standing to be able to execute any of these pardons or even the executive orders, right? I can tell you, being under the staff secretary in the executive clerk's office specifically, that's an apolitical position. You maintain your post there no matter which administration comes or goes. So I actually even worked during Obama. No one have a heart attack. Know thy enemy is the way to work, I think, in my opinion. So I was there during that administration as well. And I say all that to say, so I know the process, I know the standard operating procedures, and I can tell you without a doubt, because again, the executive clerks maintain every single item that the president of any administration signs from the dawn of day, that the auto pen tends to be exercised very much so, much more than a Republican president. I can tell you also that President Trump was the most exercised in a physical signature. I'm sure there's no surprise there. And then Joe Biden utilized the auto pen more than any other president. Now, the thing is, right, you talk about, okay, doctor confidentiality, got that point. Then you talk about a chief of staff. That's where I'm most focused on, right? Because at the end of the day, the auto pen procedures, anytime a presidential signature outside of, which Sean, I'm sure you know this, just being at the White House, outside of like, say, friends, family, guests, whoever it may be, getting a signed photo from the president or a letter, outside of those things, anything that happens to be an executive procedure that requires the presidential signature, the executive clerk's office and office records management are the two offices that say no matter what. And when they're in there, the way the whole entire process goes is that you have the staff secretary being the nucleus. And so bringing that in and tying that in with this chief of staff, I'm looking at the staff secretary. I'm looking at the individual who starts that very process that says, yes, Joe Biden is signing off on this pardon, this clemency, this executive order, etc. We remember before this happened with this chief of staff saying, I plead the fifth. Just recently, Neera Tanden had to come in and testify, and she said the same thing. I don't know who told me I don't know who told me that Joe Biden said yes to the auto pen for these particular signings. And the thing is that everyone is putting their hands up and saying, I don't know. But I would even look at Jeff Zients, because he's the main chief of staff for the White House, and the chief of staff would relay to say Neera Tanden or Stephanie Feldman, the number 2 and number 3 out of the staff secretaries that served under that administration. And everything is cataloged in email. If the chief of staff is going to tell them, that's cataloged to the staff secretary, and then the staff secretary executes the physical signature. That includes the office of the executive clerk, the office that I worked in, where we start to see the draft from start to finish, including Office of General Counsel, the White House lawyers. If National Security Council needs to be involved, there's a whole
Gabrielle, can I ask you a quick question? If somebody walked down and said, hey, Gabrielle, can you put a signature on this, the president?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so that's important.
Yes, that's the thing. And so, I'll absolve you of all the inner details, but from the very start to the very end, it's in writing, the draft to the final. When you get to that final piece, the staff secretary has to say, again, with all these individuals that we're talking about being included on the email, saying ready for AP. We never, even if it's verbalized, we never print out any presidential document that requires the signature unless it says in writing, ready for AP, AP being AutoPen. Then myself or any of my former coworkers would take that document, walk it up to the 5th floor of the executive building, and we would hand it over and stand there, sign a piece of paper with Office of Records Management. Records Management has the key, they press the button, and they go ahead and execute that AutoPen signature. I take it, go to the West Wing, give it to the staff secretary. They will verbalize to me, I can prepare a press release, but we wouldn't do any of that again until it was also in writing by the staff secretary, and then we disseminate to press. So there's a whole process that is required to be cataloged. So when you hear someone say, I don't know who told me which way or whatever. Well, even look at the recent New York Times article. Joe Biden said, I was responsible for all of those 1,000 plus pardons. And Jeff Zients, the chief of staff, was also there, and he could vouch for me. Jeff Zients was working at the same time that Neera Tanden and Stephanie Feldman were. So for Neera Tanden, I'm sure Stephanie's coming on in next for questioning to say, I don't know who told me. All that is in the National Archives. It's on the White House server. So if these people don't want to necessarily perjure themselves, although I think they already have guilt by admission in some cases and omission, there is an easy process in which the National Archives and the White House servers themselves, I worked in White House IT as well before that position, it's all in there. So it's all about how serious the policymakers here want to be.
Matthew Foldi, hearing all that, put the tinfoil hat, although I think there's a tariff on tinfoil hats now. This is going to make them much more expensive. Hearing what Gabrielle just said to you, and this tracks what came up at my Senate Judiciary hearing, there should be a paper trail, an email trail that says, spoke to president, he wants to do this, he signed off, and then, okay. Where are the people who consider themselves journalists? Why are they not pursuing this? If you know that the map shows how to get to Goldilocks' house, why isn't anyone going there?
So let's, tinfoil hat or not, maybe you're right about the tariffs. Let's pretend for this that Biden's brain was not complete applesauce, especially by the end of his time in office. Great question about the media. And I'm a Maryland man, but I'm not in MS-13. And so I know I am not. That is breaking news. And so I do like Edgar Allan Poe, and The Telltale Heart, I think, is a great and relevant short story here. I'm not implying that Biden is dead here, but, just quick, if you don't remember it, guy murders someone and then the guy is haunted from beyond the grave. And Joe Biden is both the Democrats and the media's telltale heart. This is the only way I think you can really think about this. That's why you see the Democratic Party coming apart at the seams about this question of primarying the old people now. They have no idea how to reckon with the fact that every single Democrat lied to Americans for 4 years. But Biden is also the media's telltale heart. You see this with Jake Tapper trying to, grovel to everyone and say, please trust me. And look, this does tie back to the Epstein conversation we were having. Joe Biden sprung a cancer diagnosis, an advanced cancer diagnosis on the country right as this book was coming out about how he was lying about his health. I feel horrible for him. He was supposed to have solved cancer during his 50 years in office. Obviously, he hasn't done that. But I think it is a completely fair question to ask, okay, why did we learn about this now? Was his doctor incompetent or covering this up? And then you saw immediately Democrats spring into action on, I think it was either CNN or MSNBC or probably both, saying, oh my God, the former president has advanced cancer. We have to stop talking about his age when he was in the White House. And that basically worked. And I saw this happen this week. The media is still, I'm a journalist, but I'm not a liberal journalist, is still trying to cover.
Well, then are you a journalist?
Yeah, well, exactly. And honestly, Sean, it's a great question. I do think that Elon Musk and Andrew Breitbart are right when they say we and your audience are the media now.
Yes.
But I wrote a story this week about how NBC News, they thought they got James Comer in a trap. They said James Comer used digital signatures, basically DocuSign, on his subpoenas. Okay, so I did 5 seconds of work. Five seconds of work. NBC Universal, which is NBC News' parent company, guess what? Uses AutoPen in their e-filings for court documents. The usage of the AutoPen is not the problem. It is the abuse. It is the abuse of the AutoPen. Now, let's take the tinfoil hat completely off here for a second. I think Biden, if he were cogent, would probably have agreed with everything that it was used for. I mean, he was sold to Americans as a normal guy, but he was basically an empty vessel for the far left. Joe Biden has been anti-death penalty for my entire life. And that doesn't make his 37 death row commutations any less disgusting. One of the things that Pam Bondi did that I think was great was she hosted several of the families who were on the receiving end, right? As in the murderer, the kidnapper, the rapist of their loved one's death sentence was commuted by Joe Biden's AutoPen after the election. Let's even set aside his blanket future and past present for Hunter Biden. What he did for the back row abolition of the federal death penalty, I think was completely despicable. But I think Biden agreed with all of that. And even though these guys, when the Oversight Committee was trying to ask them fairly basic questions, and it seems like these guys would have pled the fifth if they were asked what their own names were. Here are two things that we do know about Joe Biden towards the end of his presidency. His doctor said that he feared that Biden's staff was going to kill him. Biden could not recognize Jake Sullivan, who has worked for him for my entire life. That's kind of humiliating if you're Jake Sullivan. I guess to defend Biden, Jake Sullivan looks like such a blood-sucking demon that maybe you wouldn't want to recognize him. And then I guess as a bonus, Joe Biden's staff also apparently mulled putting the guy in a wheelchair. This is not what you do if the president is a greater athlete than Tom Brady, which is obviously impossible. But that's also what his staff was sort of trying to imply to the American people. Oh, you just have to see him behind closed doors. Then he's smarter than Cicero. Then he's sharper than Sean Spicer. I don't think anyone ever bought that, but the Democrats and their allies in the White House press corps in particular, these are the most debased individuals in American politics. They lied for 4 years and now they're trying to cover up their traces still. I think that's why the media still has no idea how to address this huge, huge scandal.
Yeah, let me just put a pin on your point about them trying to trap Comer. I've said this before, and I just want everyone, I use DocuSign all the time. Right? Or digital signatures. I signed something this week with it. It's not a question of whether you use an AutoPen or not. And that's why what Gabrielle explained to us is so important. It's when I asked her that question, I wanted to make sure I got to that, because here's the thing. If Joe Biden says, sign my name to this, and does the exact process that Gabrielle thinks, 100% legitimate. But if Gabrielle said, yeah, every once in a while I would type a letter out to somebody and then put his name on it, that's illegal. It's the same way if you DocuSign for a mortgage refinance. For me, it's illegal.
Bingo.
It's not about the method. It's about the intent. And that's the important thing. I want to get to a kind of a rapid round. So just please, adhere to the ethos of the rapid round. David Avella, there were three things that happened this week that I feel did not get attention because of the aforementioned, pedophile. That are big. The rescissions package is good to go, right? This is monumental. The idea of Washington cutting money, the idea that it included NPR and PBS, to me, is like a decades-long thing. We saw the border get more secure than ever. And then I think the other big thing that, to me, that bubbled up was on the Maha front, these dyes that all these companies are using. President Trump last night saying that Coca-Cola is going to go back to cane sugar. The 3 big wins for the movement. Which one do you think should have gotten more attention of those 3, or a player to be named later that I didn't mention? But give me a quick answer.
Well, we had another trade deal too. You forgot about that got
there you
put
go.
in place. And as we are looking at moving the economy forward, that was a big win.
Okay, I that's a good one. You think that trumps the other ones?
Well, hopefully on the cuts we do more. Hopefully it's the start,
Okay, I
not
agree.
the end.
All right, let me then, knowing what I know now, I'm going to rephrase this to Gabrielle. Including the trade deal, 1 through 4, rank the importance of those things in your mind.
I'm going to start with number 1, and we're going to talk about Maha, because at the end of the day, anything that just translates into your plate directly in your face, that's going to affect not only conservatives, but liberals as well. And that's a win for America.
Okay.
So I say that's number 1 first and foremost. And that's the one that should have gotten the attention, I think. But the second one being, again, closer back to home in front of your face is what's in front of your screen. And when you talk about NPR and PBS, I 1000% agree. Why the heck would we ever be happy over state-run media? I don't want any of my media getting any money from the government whatsoever. We saw what happened in Operation Mockingbird with 400 journalists. The
Number 3.
Committee.
Number 3.
Number 3. What was my other options here? Number 3, the border.
So we had the rescissions bill, which you got trade, and then I even forgot.
Okay, back in front of your face.
Border.
Trade, pocket. Border's been celebrated since the day President Trump has come into office, so that'll be at the end just because it's a consistent one. Okay?
All right.
Just because
Matthew,
it's a consistent one.
All right,
Perfect.
Matthew.
I'm the complete opposite, and I'll go from least. I'll go from least to most important. I am fueled by diet soda, whose ingredients I don't know how to pronounce. I have no problem drinking red dye 4. I wear red dye 4 on my clothing. I think I'm not going to eat this, but I'm totally fine with the food dye. I don't really care about that. And Trump doesn't drink non-diet Coke, so I don't think he's even going to try it with the cane sugar. I think the cuts are very important. All of these are important, though. I mean, Sean, you and I both run media outlets. We get no government funding. I think that's very fair. I don't want government funding. I know. Yeah.
I want it, just to be clear. I'll take it, though. I'll take it.
Look, as long as PBS is taking it and NPR is taking it, I honestly don't think there's an argument for why you and I shouldn't be getting it.
Right, I know.
I'd rather no one get it. Trade deal is obviously important. And I think the opposite. I think the border it's why Trump is president. I visited the border during Joe Biden. I was there at 2 a.m. on the Arizona border crossing. Yep. A caravan of 100 plus people came across the border. And I'm like, hey, guys, really smart to wait until the illegals were coming so we could do a photo op. And they're like, no, we obviously didn't tell MS-13 and the cartels that we were coming here because that's dangerous. That's how open our border was. Now, if you want to go visit the border, they tell you it's not worth it because no one is coming anymore. The border is the most secure because that is something that Trump and honestly, the entire administration have prioritized from top to bottom. I think that affects ultimately everything else that we're talking about. So I put that as number 1 for the week.
I agree. There is no MAGA without immigration and border security. So I'm with you on that. I think rescissions is number 2.
I like my red dye 4.
I will say, to me, that's number 3. 4 is trade. But I will say, I am weaning myself off of it, just like I'm stopping listening to NPR. No, wait, I never did. All right. I want to get to winners and losers. We got to go relatively quick. Dave Avella, let me start with you. Who do you think won the week? Who do you think lost the week?
Biggest winner, Von Miller, who just signed with the Washington Commanders as we make our march to the Super Bowl this year.
Did not see that one coming. Then again, I'm a Patriots fan, so I don't know that I cared as much. All right, who lost the week? Who lost the week, David Avella?
Oh, gosh, who lost the week? Democrats in New York who are stuck with Mondani as their nominee.
Strong choice. Matthew Foldi, mix it up for me. Give me a winner.
Winner is Shane Gillis. He is the funny. I'm a Jew, and I am very funny. And Shane Gillis proves that non-Jews can be
Is
hilarious.
that, wait, can I was going to say, I didn't even know that was an issue. I will start asking someone's religion. Is there like a stigma about
No
Jews not
comment.
being
I have
funny?
no comment on that. But Shane Gillis is so funny. Everything
Is he Jewish?
Does, no, I don't think. I think he's redeeming comedy for the Goys. He was
Oh, okay, all
unbelievably
right.
funny. No, he
Not
was
that
hilarious.
I care. I was like, I didn't see that one. All right,
No.
who lost the week?
Geez, well, I guess let's stick with the NFL. Let's say the Bills lost because they released Von Miller and then let him go to the Commanders.
Okay, Gabrielle, give us your first take on who won the week and who lost.
All right, who won the week was Amanda Bynes because for, the younger viewers or the older, sure, why not? Amanda Bynes had a really rough go for the last 20 years, but no one recognizes that she started the Maha movement. That was one of the main bits of her comedy when she was a kid, was this character that would always scream Maha. It's on my Instagram page if anybody wants to see that. But
Okay.
the
Also have the
loser of the
lobsters
week,
on stage, right?
yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Whoa.
And the loser of the week is Hunter Biden because, well, a win for us, I guess, because he admitted what we already knew and him complaining about the Democrats kicking out his father to run for another term. Well, shoot, I guess he's on our team now. I don't know. But
You know what?
loser of the week for
Biden
admitting.
actually complained that the Democrats weren't loyal to his father, and Hunter Biden is such a deadbeat father. He won't even acknowledge his own child. Joe Biden wouldn't even acknowledge his own grandchild. This is the stripper baby that Hunter Biden had with the Arkansas lady, the baby named Navy. The Bidens are horrible people. They would never even have the Christmas stocking for Biden's unacknowledged grandchild.
I got to be honest with you. I'm going to get Gabrielle comes on strong in her first appearance because I didn't know either one. That's why, look, guys, you watch the show, you learn something, even in the winners and losers. I didn't know about Amanda Bynes, number one. And number two, I'm with you. The Hunter Biden thing, dude, I mean, seriously, yeah, that's the problem. If we had just kept Joe in longer, I guess he's still doing drugs. Yeah, that was the problem. All right. I'll start with my loser of the week because they're tied together. My loser of the week is NPR and PBS. The idea that they were all up trying to save their skin this week, claiming that they don't see the bias that everyone else does, was like proof positive that that's, again, I think that we shouldn't fund the government should never fund any media types, regardless of the bias they have. But these CEOs up there saying, we just don't even know what people are talking about, shows, okay, then you definitely need to be defunded. But my winner of the week, because of that, is the American taxpayer. Getting a rescissions package done in Washington is a big deal. Yes, it was only $9 billion, $90 billion over 10 years. But this is a start. This is like an overweight person getting off the couch. You got to start somewhere. You got to start that journey to wellness. And I feel like we got back to cutting government, making it more efficient. The winner is the American people. Guys, thanks for being here. Always love the Thursday panel. As I mentioned, next week, a huge week for us. Sean O'Brien from the Teamsters will be here Monday. But tomorrow, Mark Mitchell with Rasmussen Report going to break down the latest polling. Where does the Trump White House stand? Where's the movement stand? Where's Congress going into the midterms? We're going to break it all down. Thanks for being here. Remember to go to SeanSpicer.com, sign up for the newsletter. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Sean Spicer Show. Thanks for being with us. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.